Hello everybody, it's Haj here. In today's video, I will talk about the relevance of DSLR cameras in this era of mirrorless cameras. We hear and read it everywhere that now is the era of mirrorless cameras and that the reign of DSLR is actually over. But that does not mean that DSLR cameras are now useless and that one cannot take amazing photos with DSLR cameras any longer. I strongly believe that a great photo is actually taken by a great photographer and not by a great camera. However, every time I show my photos to people, the first thing they always ask is, which camera and lens do you use? And I think that happens to lots of us. Of course, cameras and lenses matter. High-end cameras will make the task of the photographer easier than, let's say, an entry-level cameras. But at the end, they are just tools. It is the eye and the skills of the photographer that creates the image. The three DSLR cameras I have from Nikon here were Nikon's top-of-the-line product at their launch. The D5, the D500 and the D850. They have the same brain, they share the same XPED5 image processor, the same multicam 20K autofocus module with 153 focus points. However, each was targeted to different users. The D5 is a flagship camera. The 20 megapixel full-frame sensor on the D5 might look like a big sacrifice in terms of resolution, but in reality it is more than enough. It is more than what you need, for example, for printing on an A3 paper at 300 dpa or an A1 paper at 180 dpa. But how many of us still print our pictures nowadays? Nowadays, images are being viewed mainly on portable devices. For example, the display of the Samsung S24 Plus has a resolution of 3120 by 1440 pixels, which is actually less than the resolution of the 9 megapixel image from the D5 taken with a DX crop mode. You may say as well, technology will improve and in the future we will have a smartphone equipped with a 16K display. But the thing is, as long as you do not plan to actually look at your smartphone through a microscope, it's gonna be nothing but a gimmick. Our eyes will not be able to resolve such detail on such small surface. If you're still not convinced, then pick up any vegetables in your fridge and look at it as close as possible. And now, try to count how many cells you see. Oh, actually you can't, because you cannot see the cells with your bare eyes. Of course, the 45 megapixel full-frame sensor has more resolution than 20 megapixel full-frame sensor, and therefore it gives them more flexibility for later cropping. But the thing is, what the D5 lost in resolution, it makes up for it with, let's say, low light performance and speed. Also, the D5 is designed to sustain and endure the abuse, the stress and the pace of professional work. The D850, on the other hand, is, I would say, the best one camera does it all DSLR camera out there. The 45 megapixel full frame sensor, on the other hand, penalized the buffer size, and the frame rate might not be ideal for fast-paced action. But come on, still, 9 frames per second is not a slot either. However, when it comes to autofocus, I would say the D850 just cannot keep up with the D5 and the D500. But what if, let's say, you want the performance of the D5, but the size or the weight or the low resolution of the D5 put you off? Well, in this case, I would say the D500 is then the right camera for you. The D500 is just the best DSLR crop sensor camera ever made, period. One thing worth mentioning about the D500 as well is the distribution of the focus point. While the D5 and the D850 and the D500 all share the same focus module, the focus points of the D5 and the D850 are actually clustered in the middle of the frame, while on the D500 the focus point area covers actually almost the entire width of the frame and more than half the height of the viewfinder. It is something actually very useful when offsetting the composition or when tracking fast-moving subject. And finally, the last camera I have here is the Z9. It is Nikon's first mirrorless flagship camera. At least on paper, the Z9 is like the combination of the best things from the D5, the D500 and the D850, I would say. It has high speed, high frame rate, high buffer capacity, high resolution. Also, the focus points are distributed across the entire frame. The Z9 is built like a tank, looks like one, and some might even say weight like one too, but seriously, I find cameras with integrated grip balancing better with large telephoto lenses than those flimsy small cameras. Volume-wise, I bet you that if you have space for a small camera in your backpack, the Z9 will also fit right in. And weight-wise, I'm not the kind of a person who will complain about the 400-gram extra weight. By the way, adding an extra battery grip and extra spare batteries to those small factors camera will make the weight and the size differences negligible. Also, like most of mirrorless camera nowadays, the Z9 has subject recognition and also have great video features. It also does not need focus fine-tuning like DSLR cameras. And actually seeing the exposure through the viewfinder before you even take the shot is very helpful. However, the longer I use the Z9, the less I use the subject recognition feature, and I'm starting to kind of lose my faith in it. I mean, there are situations where it is very useful, but in most situations I ended up just not using it. Take for example the case of this wobbler in the reeds. The Z9 failed completely, but the D5 actually nailed the shot. It made me laugh when actually Nikon introduced airplane detection mode. Come on, a huge airplane, very likely flying over a blue uniform background, and we need a subject detection for it. I would say any camera out there will lock focus and will track the airplane flawlessly with just a simple auto area mode. I also feel that the Z9 is not the fastest when it comes to focus acquisition. The D5 and the D500 acquire focus faster than the Z9. The focus acquisition of the Z9 I find is on par with the focus acquisition of the D850 instead. Tracking a subject is, however, very easy with the Z9. The D500 and the D5 will also track the subject as well as the Z9, as long as you manage to keep the subject on the focus point. But that is not a skill that everybody has, especially with long telephoto lenses. Personally, I often do not have a problem finding and tracking my subject with a 600mm lens on a full frame camera. 600mm on a DX crop camera, however, start to be challenging, and 800mm on a crop sensor camera I just find quite difficult. With the Z9, I feel like it's not really about skill. When it works, then it is the best autofocus system out there. However, if the algorithm fails, then I really feel upset about missing the shot, because I feel like my skill is actually good enough, but it is actually the algorithm of the camera that failed me. And there is nothing I can do about it. And I find that hard to accept. With the DSLR camera, if I miss a shot, then it's because of me. And I'm okay with that. My skill is then just not good enough yet. And that is something I can improve in the long run. To conclude this video, I would say each of those 4 cameras is still and will always be a great camera. At the end of the day, it is all about, well, how deep your pocket is and what is your main interest in photography. The Z9 is still priced above 4,000 euro used, while the D5 and the D850s are around 1,500 euros, and the D500 around 800 euros, depending of course on the condition of the camera. And because the camera body alone is useless without a decent lens, it is here where the price of the Z system spikes very quickly. Assuming of course that you are planning to get then only Z mount lens, but not gonna adapt F mount lenses. And because of the aforementioned reason, if I have to let go of one of these cameras, then I would not actually hesitate to sell the Z9. If a second camera will also have to go, then it will be the D850. I would keep the D5 and the D500 for action and wildlife photography, and for the rest I will get instead then a cheap Z7 or Z7 Mark II as an all-around cameras and for also video work. So that's it for this video. I hope you find it interesting and useful, and until next time then, bye.